Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening. This is Here for the Health of It, and we have a great guest. We have Caroline Green, who is a nutrition from Caroline Green Nutrition. We get into all things intuitive eating. We talk about what it means to have a healthy relationship with food, what you should eat, shouldn't eat, or why you shouldn't even think about it. We talk about how food is different in Canada and all the different components of what she works on with her clients and how she gets such great results. So thanks for listening. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Here for the Health of It. I am Dr. Randy here with Dr. Tom. As always, we are in matching peach Columbia's hottest shirts because we're Columbia's hottest podcast. Thanks, everyone, for all your reviews. You can check us out on Instagram. Just look Here for the Health of It podcast. We have our own website there. And we have a great guest today. We have Caroline Green from Caroline Green Nutrition.
You got it.
And you're into all things, you're saying wide ranging when it comes to nutrition and health and calorie stuff. I see as a big deal. Yep. So, all right. So tell us how you got into this. Give us an intro.
So I am a registered and licensed dietitian. So I went to the University of Georgia and received my bachelor's of science in dietetics. And then I went to Georgia Southern for my dietetic internship. It's kind of similar to like a residency or where you get matched to a program and you work in different facets of the field. So you kind of learn, okay, what is community nutrition like? What is clinical nutrition like? You know, working in a hospital setting versus counseling or private practice. And you work under a dietitian and get 1,200 supervised practice hours, and then you're able to sit for the board's exam. And so that's kind of the path to becoming a registered dietitian.
Nice.
So yeah, that's kind of that.
So, all right. So you meet with people one-on-one to talk about what they're eating.
In a very basic black and white sense, yes.
Hey, let's oversimplify it as well as we can.
Yeah.
Well, and I know that I was looking at some of your Instagram things. I know that the calorie counting is one of your big things that you're against. And you kind of cater, I think, to people who maybe have like an eating disorder or they're obsessed. Every bite that they put in their mouth, they can only have a cracker and a half.
Yes.
And as I was reading that, I think that is important for a chunk of people, but I also think there's a whole bunch of people that they're just eating constantly.
Yes.
And we've talked about this a couple times before about the intuitive eating side of it and how for some people it's amazing. It's the biggest freedom they've ever felt. And then for other people, they do intuitive eating and they put on 50 pounds in 3 months. Can you speak to that a little bit about the people who maybe need to intuitively eat or the people who should not intuitively eat?
So I actually believe intuitive eating really is for everyone because there's a lot of misconceptions about it. So I know there was a recent article in, I forget what it was, maybe Wall Street Journal, about someone who, followed advice about intuitive eating on TikTok, and she gained 50 pounds in 3 months and was unhealthy. And I just laughed out loud at that article because that's not intuitive eating. Like intuitive eating is, you really do need to be working with a professional in it who knows what it is because there is so much misconception about it. It isn't just eating what you want whenever you want. There is so much more to it. It takes into account nutrition. It takes into account, it's essentially normal balanced eating before diet culture got involved. It's, you're not going to eat cupcakes all day every day because that doesn't feel good to your body.
Right.
Right? Like eating when you're not hungry isn't intuitively eating. It's dealing with the deeper roots of eating issues and your relationship to food so that you can eat balanced and listen to your body and not, have kind of just chaotic, baggage-filled issues with food.
Nice.
You're going to have to unpack it for me more.
Yeah, totally.
I knew that this guy was going to be challenging.
Well, and part of it is
because he doesn't listen. He doesn't listen to his intuition. I don't think.
I think that
he likes data.
I think in Canada it was very easy to eat intuitively because the portion sizes that you get are very small, and then the chemicals that they're allowed to put in foods are less addictive, less toxic, and probably more filling because you have to use certain ingredients. So when I'm in Canada, I could eat intuitively, no problem. When we were in Greece, I could eat intuitively, no problem. You come to the US and you try to eat intuitively,
food's a
and
little bit
they
different.
give you 2,000 calories on your plate, and it tastes amazing, and it's loaded with sugar. And you're like, well, when does my body intuitively not want to eat 2,000 calories worth of sugar? Never.
Well, I'd ask you, how did that make you feel? Probably
Yes.
crappy.
I love
In
So
the
then
moment,
you're
in
not
the
eating
moment, it
intuitively.
feels like
In the moment, it tastes delicious.
amazing. Yeah, and or at 9 o'clock at night. Like we have a rule in our house: no junk is allowed in our house ever. So if it's 9 o'clock at night and I feel that I intuitively want to, I don't know if intuitively is the wrong word, but like my body needs ice cream. I can't go to my cupboard and get ice cream. I would have to get in my vehicle and drive to the store in order to get ice cream.
Ice cream's
Right.
in it's in the freezer too. He would be looking in the
Oh,
wrong spot.
yeah, that's true. or maybe it's hidden from me. My wife hides it somewhere.
My husband actually put ice cream in the fridge once. It was hilarious. You know,
Did it and all melted, or it
of
was
course.
just
Yeah, it was done.
I don't know. Ice cream these days are just chemicals that don't melt.
is bad,
Don't.
But
go
I think
bad.
that's the point. So you would taste the like to what you're saying is in the moment you're gonna eat it, and then you're gonna feel that you've shitty,
Yeah.
and then you're gonna start to realize like I just don't really want as much of that, and then it's slowly
Yeah.
you slowly start changing towards I felt better when I ate this.
That's one facet of it. Like I said, there is so much to unpack. It's hard to explain in just kind of one thing. But I will say, yes, like, our environment is set up for overeating and not eating healthy and whole foods. And so another way to explain intuitive eating is we're putting weight and weight loss on the back burner to focus on health and healthy habits.
Yes.
Right.
I love
So
that.
if people are
Okay.
struggling with eating fast food all the time or eating ice cream every night or binge eating, we're just looking at it from a different approach. We're saying, okay, what is contributing to that? And what is a way that we can add in healthy habits? It's all about addition, not subtraction. Right? That's the problem with diet culture is we're getting too extreme where it's like, okay, we need to be wary of sugar. So like we're never going to eat sugar. And then people feel extremely guilty and shameful when they do eat sugar, which is a human response to restriction, right?
Yeah.
Sugar isn't addictive. There's research that shows, people, they did a study with rats, for example, and, they had a control group and they had another group. And essentially the rats that had access to sugar ad lib, whenever they wanted, had normal behaviors with it. But the rats that were restricted to sugar for X amount of time and then were given sugar, they went crazy over it and they acted like they were addicted to it. But it's not that it's addictive, just like music isn't addictive just because it lights up serotonin and dopamine. It's the restriction and the diet mentality of, oh my gosh, we need to avoid these horrible foods that is causing people to have it basically increases the reward activity in the brain when they do eat it because we're human and there's going to be cake at birthdays and we might have a slice. And then if you've gone on this diet cycle and you're listening to external reasons to eat like calories or diet or rules, it's going to make things really, really wonky and lead to more overeating and binge eating.
Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Columbia Family Chiropractic, with 3 easy-to-get-to locations, one in Forest Acres, which is by Trader Joe's, one in O'Neill Court by the DMV, and one in the Northeast by Sand Hills. You'll be sure to have somewhere near you. They offer a ton of services from corrective care, on-site digital x-rays, spinal decompression for bulging or herniated discs, dry needling for injuries, pediatric care, and a Class 4 laser. They accept all your major insurances. And if you mention this ad, you'll get a discount on your first appointment. Check out their website at cfc4health.com or Google Columbia Family Chiropractic. That's cfc4health.com.
Yeah.
I saw a rat study too where they were talking about cocaine,
Mhm.
and they said if they deprive the rat, it was just by itself, total loneliness, it would just keep hammering the cocaine thing. But if it had a big
Social
group
group,
of
yeah.
people, then it basically just ignored it.
Yeah.
But I still think cocaine's probably addictive.
Yeah.
I've never tried it, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's addictive to
Yeah.
me, even though rats wouldn't have it
Right. And
in a
it's still
social
a study
group.
in rats. We're humans. We're different creatures. So I think that's one thing with like nutrition science as a whole is it's really hard to study food. Like food science is a hard science because you have to study people over a long period of time. You have to study eating patterns. It's really hard to control for every factor,
Right.
right? And so, studies, that's why nutrition science is ever changing. Like, the whole low fat fad in the 70s and 80s. And now people are like, wait, fat's actually really healthy and we need it, because that's the problem with all these diets and things that come out is it really is still such a new science and it's ever changing. And for every study that says, oh, this led to this, there's another study that says the opposite, right?
You could create whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen books on that where they just literally could be like the Taco Bell diet
Oh, yeah.
or whatever.
That's crazy.
So I guess to that then, is there anything you do agree on that's just like your Bible facts where you're just like food dye, for example, like red dye. Are you like, hey, that's okay or pesticides? Like, where's your firm line where you're like, this we need to start really eliminating?
I think overall I'm a big believer in whole foods, like whole, less minimally processed foods, but we also have to be realistic that, it is what we're doing most of the time that matters. It's not going to be perfect. So if you are on a road trip and you literally have no access to food, but fast food, like some food is better than no food.
Right.
And there's no such thing as a perfect diet. So I find that when we focus too much on that elimination, that, oh, this is bad, it brings in so much shame. It's almost like I have a 2.5-year-old, right?
Yeah,
if I tell him not to do something, he's going to do it and he's going to laugh in my face. And so it's just like what I do as a dietitian is I kind of combine the psychology behind all of this with nutrition science.
Yes.
Because you could tell someone this is exactly what you should eat, just like any diet. Eat this, don't eat that, follow this plan. It's never gonna work because human beings are complex. There's psychology, our own experiences, our own lifestyles, our own relationship to food.
Right.
And so that's the approach I take versus eat this, don't eat that.
Yeah.
It's more of we're looking at the deeper stuff behind all of our relationship with food.
I think the thought about food is 90% of the battle.
Yeah.
I think there's still a component to if you are eating pure shit, that's that 10%. But like the more I learn, the worse you get, I almost felt. Like if I didn't know that a Snickers bar was bad as a kid, you just eat it, enjoy it, and you looked forward to it. Now it's like if you were to eat something, you think about, oh my God, this is going to do this, and this. And that psychological attachment makes you worse, right?
And that in and of itself can create stress, which leads to inflammation and increased cortisol. And I believe there are some studies showing like the stress around what you eat is worse for your body than like the actual food. Like if
we
you
need to be young and reckless again, right?
Well, that's
I don't,
the
you
whole
guys are on,
yeah.
you guys are on the same
I
wavelength
love it.
that I'm on a
Totally.
whole different planet.
He wants a really strict,
Yep.
by the book something.
I think if you
I get
give
it. I hear it all the time. There's,
if you give a kid unlimited sugar and say just eat whatever feels good, or if Tom's gonna eat 2 burritos at Chipotle,
which I have.
yeah,
Chipotle.
and regular,
You call it Chipotle?
yeah.
No way.
Listen,
Chipotle.
there's a lot
I'm
of
told
weird.
that it's wrong, but it's the only way
I
that
heard
I know.
grandma
weird
call it
stuff.
chipotle, so you never know.
Chipotle. I like saying that too. They like you would know that you're gonna feel like crap after, but you do it anyways.
Yeah.
And then like if there's if you had cookies on this table right here, I don't want cookies. I don't feel good after cookies. But if they're in front of me, I'm gonna eat cookies.
Why do you think that is?
We got to dive deeper into
Let's
psychology.
dive into that.
Because I
Get him in the
unpack
chair.
that.
Get him on the couch.
I probably like sugar.
That's
it
his
tastes good.
But that's his belief about it, right? Because there are people that literally don't like it at all because they had a bad experience and they've made that their psychological
Yes.
belief.
And there's something called food habituation. All right. So think about whenever you got like your first new car and it was super exciting and like you wanted to drive it all the time versus like a year later, it was just your car. It was just like
Right.
normal. The same thing happens with food. So, and we see this a lot in people that follow very strict food rules or diet, or, you know, have foods that are off limits and they're even just mentally, that then it's like, okay, if cookies are in front of you and you tell yourself, okay, no, these are bad foods, I shouldn't be eating those. Once again, it increases your cravings for it and it increases the reward capacity in the brain. And it's kind of what we
Yeah.
call the forbidden fruit syndrome. So you want it even if you're not hungry. It's more the emotional
Yeah.
baggage around it versus listening to your body. If you know any food is always allowed, and it's more about tuning into, how hungry am I?
Yeah.
What food's going to make me energized right now? What am I in the mood for? Like, if I can have a cookie anytime, is that the cookie I want?
Yeah.
And then you can pass on it. It's crazy the amount of clients I've had that come into my door and they say, I cannot keep ice cream in the house because I will eat the entire thing.
Right.
And at, you know, a year after our work, they're like, I had ice cream in the freezer, I forget about it. I don't
Mhm.
want it anymore. Maybe occasionally, like with my kid, and it's a positive experience,
Right.
but they're not driven to it out of psychology, if that makes sense.
Yep. We got to
Yeah,
loosen
it
up
sounds
Randy
great.
a little.
No, it sounds wonderful.
Eat a cookie. Tell
Eat a
yourself it's
cookie,
allowed.
big
I'll eat
guy.
cook. I mean, I'm fine. I'm also like
Get some
fine with
cookies
that.
in your
I
house.
don't, I don't
Get a
mind.
cookie jar.
Get a
But a
cookie jar.
2-year, but I still think like a 2-year-old, if you just gave your
Right.
son like eat whatever feels
Got to
good
be an
to
age.
you.
Yeah. Got to be
Yes.
an
Oh,
age
yeah.
where it.
Oh, yeah. So the way we also like to describe intuitive eating is we are all born as natural intuitive eaters, right? Like, we seek out food from primarily our mothers, our caregivers, and, you know, babies cry when they're hungry. They stop eating when they've had enough. And so all humans are naturally born as intuitive eaters, but then we grow up in a society that's obsessed with thinness, obsessed with diets, and, you know, we hear everything, and it just kind of skews our relationship to food, and we aren't able to fully connect with our bodies anymore. We're not really just taught that. So yeah, kids, it's a little different. Like, you know, there's a fabulous book that's all about intuitive eating for kiddos. I recommend it to all my parents. Blanking on the name right now, of course, but it is
Mhm.
like intuitive eating for kids, you know,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
very self-explanatory. And it talks about that. You know, it's still about adding in whole foods for your kids and not just giving them sugar. It's, hey, yeah, let's have ice cream, but let's have it with our dinner. You know, you're basically just trying to be neutral with food and still teach balanced eating behaviors
Yeah.
without the judgment, the good versus the bad, the body and the weight talk.
Yeah. Do you find it primarily women that are the main people that because of the images? Because I think there's a lot of
Yes.
dudes with our cookie dough beer guts and things that we look in the mirror and we're like,
Whatever.
great. Oh
Yeah,
my
the
God.
dad bod.
yeah, like
Yes.
so I guess with that, if I'm hearing you more looking at it, like the ultimate goal is to get rid of the objective number and more so get back to what do you like emotionally what are you feeling during your day to day?
Yeah, that's one aspect of it. To answer kind of the first point, you know, I see 95% women.
Yeah.
You know, I think naturally women are more emotional beings. And so, and then of course, just the pressure we have in society to look a certain way. So I think women, you know, do struggle with their relationship to food a little bit more. I've definitely had male clients similar to you that they're like, just tell me what to eat that's healthy and I'll do it. And it's like very black and white and simple, and they don't struggle with food.
That's what I love. So
is
that's
cool.
that's my best case scenario.
Yeah,
I want my biceps to be this big. How many calories? How much protein?
And maybe they don't struggle
Let's put it in
with
jars.
Yeah, which is fine.
He's got really high estrogen. Is that like the type of male client that you work with?
Spot on. So, anyways, yeah, it's basically tuning out all the noise
Yeah.
with food, and you know, yeah, the majority of my clients have struggled with body image, chronic dieting their whole life, disordered eating disorders. You know, of course, I have people that come in and just want to be healthy or lower their blood sugar levels, their A1C, but want to do it, you know, without dieting because that hasn't worked for them. And so, yeah, we're kind of tuning out all the BS essentially. a lot of myth busting,
Yeah.
and helping them tune back into their body and having a positive relationship to food that's not shame filled, because that's what we're taught.
If somebody were to come though and they want because they want a certain number,
Yeah.
would you just essentially say, we're just not the right fit? Like, and let's just use an example where they would need a number, like a fighter.
Yeah.
Like a fighter that has to get to 150 pounds to fight in a weight class. Their goal has to be that. So would you just recommend them somewhere else? Because they're really not doing it for
Yes.
lifestyle. They're doing it for whatever,
That'd be like if I was a doctor and I specialize in cardiology and someone came for me for cancer. I'd say, I'm sorry, that's not my specialty.
right.
I work primarily on healing your relationship
Gotcha.
to food, and I don't focus on weight loss. From an ethical standpoint, it's not what I offer because we can't guarantee weight loss,
Right.
right? Like weight change is a side effect. And, what matters first and foremost is healthy habits and behaviors.
Yep.
So any study that maybe shows like, these patients lost 5% of their weight and their blood sugar and their blood pressure dropped. It's not the weight loss itself. It's because they started eating more fruits and vegetables. They moved their body more. They're more hydrated. And so that's the approach I take is, weight loss could be a side effect based on, maybe someone's struggling with binge eating and we work on that and they eliminate the binging. Maybe they lose weight, but
Yeah.
I cannot guarantee, no one can, if they are, run away.
Do you stay away from any disease-based or weight-based protocols? Like, say if somebody's like, I have high blood pressure.
Oh, that's absolutely part of what I offer.
Okay, so so disease-based, like, are there differences in protocols with disease-based stuff that you would, like, again, going back to if you know that their intake of whatever is increasing their blood
Yeah.
pressure, you would talk them away from that somehow or help them
Yes.
minimize it.
So I offer a very holistic approach and it's very individualized. And so high blood pressure is a good example. Say someone came in and they were struggling with that. Once again, we focus on the healthy habits that could improve that. So adding in more fresh foods, adding in more movement
Gotcha.
that's sustainable, right? Like adding in more stress management. And so we do that on their terms, what works for them and do it's a lot of like behavior management paired with psychology, paired with nutrition science and education.
Yeah.
And we look at what's driving that, right? Is it because they didn't meal plan, so they're literally just driving to the fast food on the way home from work? Then we'd say, okay, let's work backwards. Let's start with, maybe you need to implement some kind of meal planning system, right? I'm working with a mom right now, and that's exactly what we're doing. Like sometimes we just take the session to like meal plan,
Right.
because they don't have the time for it. So we work backwards and say, okay, what is contributing to some of these behaviors, and how can we problem solve? How can we work through it? How can we challenge any negative mindset around it? And and something else I'd love to add on is intuitive eating is a evidence-based framework for a self-care model for health and nutrition. So it's not just a good idea. There's over 100 studies to date showing the health benefits. So intuitive eating is linked with decreased blood pressure, decreased lipids, decreased blood sugar levels, improved body image, self-esteem, and it actually is linked with a decreased BMI.
Mm-hmm.
But what they found is people weren't obsessed with their weight anymore.
Right.
So I've had plenty of clients where they come to me and they struggle, they have elevated A1C, they've struggled with their weight. And it's not until we actually take the focus off weight that they engage in sustainable, healthy habits. And then they're like, oh yeah, by the way, I lost 10 pounds. My blood sugar is in the normal range. It's like, awesome. And you didn't do it by dieting. And that's what's causing the issues at hand.
Yeah.
So it's almost like therapy for eating.
That's what I say. I'm a
Bingo.
nutrition therapist.
Yeah. Okay. So
Therapy for nutrition and body image.
So let's say that somebody comes in and they're 80 pounds overweight from where they should be healthy, and they have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, all the things that almost everybody has, it seems like. Where do you start with in your questions or your direction that you go? What does it look like? Because I feel like some people would be nervous walking
Yeah.
in, or this is so different than maybe what they've seen
Oh
before.
yeah, I can't tell you how many people are like, "Oh, I didn't know what I got myself into." Like emotions come up, like we literally talk about their upbringing. I mean,
Yes.
great question. So the first session is 90 minutes long because it's literally a full assessment. So we'll kind of get to know each other and ask them questions about their full health history, their relationship to food, what food was like growing up, their current eating habits, behaviors, what they struggle with, their lifestyle, their work schedule. I mean, literally get to know everything about them. So then I can individualize it. So we kind of start with, okay, what is the first thing that you want to start with? Right? Like maybe they're like, I really hate how I just overeat when I get home at night. And so we'll kind of problem solve that. Okay, what's contributing to that?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times I start with my clients with just basic like education on like blood sugar balance. Like I can do intuitive eating and take the focus off weight without even saying those terms. A lot of the times it's just starting with education of like, okay, when you go more than 4 or 5 hours without eating, you're prone to low blood sugar. And that's when cravings are higher.
Yep.
That's when you're too hungry. And then you're going to act on what we call caveman hunger and just have to get your hands on any food. And so it's really hard to make a conscious, healthy eating choice when
Right.
our blood sugar's low. So we really work on just first, like normalizing eating every 4 hours or so, balanced meals and snacks and balanced blood sugar. So even if like that's what we're working on and we don't even talk about weight or
Right.
intuitive eating or our relationship to food, it's really like, how can we just get this person like more regular eating patterns? Because that's what I see a ton, whether it's skipping lunch or going 6 hours until your next meal. And then they're just like, I'm starving. That's when I overeat. And then I feel guilty. And then I want to start a diet and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Do you see a lot of undereaters too? Like I feel like people in that
Yes.
world are just they restrict so much that they just don't eat.
Yes. So we always say like binge eating or overeating is a disorder of restriction. So usually when people are overeating or binge eating, they are under eating, and that's what's driving it.
Right.
Is that hunger? And yeah, just think about, especially as women, and you know, like MyFitnessPal, grossly underestimates our calorie needs for the day.
Right.
So I can't tell you the amount of women that come in and they're like, you know, the number in my head is 1,200 calories, and I tell them that is way too low
Insane,
for
yeah.
your needs. I'd only prescribe that for someone who, like a 9-year-old woman who's like 5 foot. Like
Yeah.
no one needs 1,200 calories except a toddler.
Really? So what would be like 1,500?
It depends. Like there's
Yeah, like-
so many factors, right? Height, weight, activity level. People that weigh more need more calories, when people who are trying to lose weight try to cut their calories and then they're under eating. And so it's
Yeah.
just, it's complex. I mean, for an active woman, like I probably need like 2,200 calories.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's all based on just efficiency, right? Meaning
Yes.
like if you plan
Your
to
metabolism.
if you plan to burn 4,000 calories because you're, running, swimming,
Oh, yeah.
biking, whatever.
Michael Phelps.
Then you
Totally
would
different.
have to
Yeah.
versus like if you're like, oh, I'm gonna chill and watch movies all day.
Might not need as much.
Yep.
And our bodies are smart. That's why I love helping my clients really tune bodies, because that's a natural calorie counter, right?
Yeah.
Like before all this diet crap in our world, people just listen to their bodies. Like, oh, I'm hungry.
That's what
I need to eat food.
Yes, I love just thinking about animals in the wild right now,
Yeah.
and people in the wild. Let's say, you know what I mean? That just
like my
don't
husband
know.
who just went to Africa. That's what I
Yes.
picture people in the
Oh,
wild.
yes.
Brendan?
Brendan.
What was he doing? Hunting?
Hunting.
I knew
We
he
have
was
like
wild.
six animals in our man cave in the house.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
I have to
Like
warn
stuffs
people.
them the whole nine?
He doesn't
Yeah,
stuff
you
them,
have to
but
bring him.
yes.
Yeah, you have to bring him back.
We have a
Holy
giant
cow.
elk. It's kind of like a museum.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I've got a bear in my bedroom.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Black bear.
Y'all should be
So-
friends.
But like animals don't think about.
No, they're not
anything.
like, oh my God, carbs. So
Yeah,
scary.
They think like I'm gonna eat whenever I'm hungry, and
Yeah.
and if I'm not, I'm not gonna eat. And if I ate something that made me feel like shit, I just stop eating that.
Yeah.
And then they kind of keep looking.
we make it so over the top
Yes.
complicated,
All
and
right.
it's causing more problems.
What do you think about the Great Reset though? Like when people do fasting, Water fasting, for example. I've done 7 days, no food.
Really?
Yep. I've done
could never.
14 days,
Yeah.
juice
done.
only.
Jesus did
What?
40 days.
My man, Jesus did 40 days. So, like, do you like anything like that where it's a really restrictive reset? Call it fasting or even just like,
Yeah.
I think there's like a lemon, cinnamon,
No,
oil.
I'm not for it.
You're not into any
But
of that.
also think about it. I specialize in the treatment of eating disorders.
Oh,
It would
right.
be extremely and unethical for me to be like, yeah, fasting's great. Like,
Right.
I just know too much. Eating disorders are so common. They're so prevalent. And that's a one-way ticket for some people
Well,
who are
see-
more biologically prone and primed to develop
You know
disordered
how
eating.
I look at it like psychologically opposite, I think.
Mm.
Well, let me give you a little
me hear this.
tidbit here. You might want to use it. I think of it as I like to do something that's harder for my brain to then do what I want to do.
It's like a mental challenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
So psychologically, if it's like, all right, I'm not going to eat for whatever, I'm going to go through a fast. I commit to that. I do it during that. Then it's like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
vegetables are great, or tree bark, or whatever the heck you like. It just turns into anything sounds awesome right now. And when you break out of that and you start the transition,
Huh.
you can then go, this is easy and enjoyable, and versus the opposite, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I didn't know if you use any things where it's like, I'm going to give you something hard, and maybe not for that amount of time, that they do that. They check the box of like, I can do hard stuff, to then give them something that's slightly easier. You can call it the Stetson protocol, and add that into your do you do anything like that? Does it make
No,
sense intuitively or no?
Kind of.
Like, well, here's why. If you were in the wild and you couldn't find food,
Yeah.
you would do something hard, which is try to continue living without food. And then when you find anything, you'd be like, this is amazing.
This rocks.
Yeah. That's why I was like, it just makes sense biologically.
Right. And once again, maybe for you men that you can do that and like have no issues.
Mhm.
I feel like.
Would you say we're superior? Is that where you're going with this? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
very different species. Men are
Okay.
from Mars, women are from
Yeah.
Venus. I know.
I'm kidding too. I'm kidding.
No, I think anything like that or any diets, like I'm not like, oh, diets are the worst, they're terrible.
Yeah.
Like I just know the statistics that show that 35% of people who diet will develop disordered eating, and a third of those will develop a full-blown eating disorder. So I'm wary of anything extreme when it comes to food, but I like to take the approach of like, you know what, if it works for someone, that's awesome. But most of the people coming in to see me struggle with that.
Right.
So I'm just kind of more of that neutral. I just kind of ask probing questions of like, what was it like for you? Is that something you want to do forever? Or maybe it's not sustainable. I'm not like, hey, you shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
I usually there's pros and cons to everything, right? Usually when clients come in and they have a history of dieting, I have them do a diet history timeline and really look into what their experience was like. Were there any pros? Like maybe someone did Whole30 and they learned to cook more and were introduced to more fresh foods.
Right.
Like
Mhm.
that's a pro. But typically there's a lot of cons as well. Or even if there were pros, it wasn't sustainable for a
Yeah.
reason. So it's like, okay, what can we take from some of these things and make it flexible and fit into your lifetime?
Yeah.
Not just like a 30-day thing
Gotcha.
where you don't feel like shit if you ate a cupcake, you know?
Yeah.
I think everything you're saying makes a lot of sense to me. And in an ideal world, I'm
Yes.
100% into it. I just don't see people in real life being able to not drink soda that's handed to them, or not eat a McDonald's. Like
Yeah.
in my mind, I would say McDonald's causes cancer. And I think if you eat McDonald's a lot, you're probably going to
It's
get
not
very
healthy.
sick. It's loaded with
Yeah.
chemicals, it's loaded with pesticides. And I think that's maybe a belief that I have that I still believe is true, unless somebody could convince me otherwise.
No
Which
one's
would be
convincing you
hard.
otherwise, right?
There goes
Like,
our McDonald's sponsorship. Thanks.
I know. I don't think there's
Out the
enough
window.
McDonald's. McDonald's could offer me $100 million to sponsor us, and I would tell them to kick it.
Well, let me see that paperwork before we do
They
that.
slide it over. Let me review the terms.
So I think you know, where my mind goes after that is thinking, you know, I think here's the misconception of intuitive eating coming out is that it's like, oh, you should eat unhealthy all the time. That's not what it is. Like, it is pro nutrition, it's pro health. And so, you know, it's figuring out, okay, if McDonald's is placed in front of you and you want it all the time and you can't pass it down, why is that? Is it because there's a lot of shame and just like psychological stuff behind it? Is it because you're starving and that's what's there? You know,
Right.
there's just so many things to it. And it's like, okay, if you want to focus on health and nutrition, what can we add in versus just like demonizing food?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I got other like more you're talking about this. I have other psychological hacks that I do with stuff like that.
Let's count how many times he says psychological today.
Is that right? Is that the right word? But like, for example, I hate drinking after somebody that like drinks off of my drink, right?
Mhm.
So call that, I don't know when that started, but it just makes me feel like I'm kissing the
Like
person.
germaphobe.
Yeah, but I'm not a germaphobe. So like I always there's a line there. There's a line. It's something about like wet anything. Like if you took a bite of something and like your mouth was on, like I wouldn't bite it.
Yeah.
And in other words, instantly my body can go, I want that. I could be dying of thirst. Could be a water bottle,
Mhm.
right? And then Randy's filthy mouth takes a drink off of it. And I'm like, all
Nope,
right, I'm gonna
not
wait.
happening.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait until I
I'd rather
find
starve.
Yeah. Yes. So like little things like that, where whether it's candy or anything, it can be switched so fast by creating something similar to that. Whether it's like, oh, there's toenails or hair, like you find a hair in your food.
Oh,
So maybe
the
another one.
worst.
Yes,
Disgusting.
I couldn't eat.
But
Right?
it's,
Yeah.
but what he's describing is kind of toxic, though.
Is it toxic or is it a good
it
psychological?
bad?
Or are you going to add this in
Well,
your
I
protocol?
think that might be a disorder.
If it affected your eating and your health, yeah, it could be a disorder.
like if
but
I
yeah.
avoided, yeah.
Like if you were like not eating.
Right. As long as I don't know about it. Like I know at restaurants, they're probably doing weird stuff. I get past that in my mind. But if I
Yeah,
see
just
it,
don't look.
it's like it's a sight thing. If I see it, then I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
I'm not having it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I will not eat food with hair in it. Absolutely not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not happening.
See?
All right.
Who knows?
So
it
there's
could
some-
be it could be the newest eating disorder.
But that's your intuition saying it's filthy. Like there's shit in there. There's grossness. Right?
That's intuitive eating for you, folks.
So, all right. Well, so tell us this. How would somebody start? What does it look like? Someone sitting here listening and they're like, all right, I need her help.
You mean like actually become a client or just in general how to like work on their relationship
Let's do
with food?
both.
Okay.
Journaling.
Journaling, yes. So
Easy.
first is like kind of taking an assessment, like, you know,
I
what are
might
your
be I might be a dietitian after this show.
Yeah.
Oh, do you need an apprentice?
Do you want me to
Tom
apprentice?
Come be
wants
my
to come
intern.
apprentice
I'm
with
gonna-
you.
my summer intern. I'll make you get coffee. So,
And
okay.
she'll drink out of it.
Oh
All of your
my
training will
God.
be she'll drink
She's
out of
gonna
it and then
spit
make
in
you have
everywhere.
it.
So I guess if someone like wanted to work with a dietitian and like actually get support, I have a website, CarolineGreenNutrition.com. And yeah, I work one-on-one with clients and like I said, do a full 90-minute assessment and then follow-ups are typically an hour. I see clients both in person or virtual.
Nice.
And it depends on the person. For outpatient, like eating disorder treatment, typically sessions are once a week. For someone who's wanting to work on intuitive eating or improve their eating habits, usually every other week is kind of the pace we go at. And yeah, I mean, I always describe it. It's kind of like counseling and therapy, but around food and body
Yes.
image.
It's great.
Yeah.
I love that. How often are you using objective measurements like blood work or weight or like
Yeah.
size
So-
of biceps?
I don't do that as a marker of progress.
She uses one measurement. I just need you to
Biceps.
send me your
Okay,
biceps
Okay, you're
size.
good. Your
Sorry, yeah.
bicep's good.
Thank you.
If I just walked in and was like, "Today we're measuring your bicep," that
I'm
tells
gonna
me
need your
everything.
calf
I'd be like,
circumference.
this one's probably cost double those bits.
So I definitely look at lab work.
Okay.
Like I just had a client get her annual labs back, and she started working with me 6 months ago. She had a history of an eating disorder and was in the pre-diabetes range. Diabetes ran rampant in her family and came back. Her A1C was down, out of the pre-diabetes range. Her
Right.
lipids were down, and this is all through not dieting because dieting can make it worse. So
Yeah.
definitely look at lab work often. I usually get lab work in the first assessment if I can. weight, we talk about weight a lot, but I'm not checking someone's weight all the time
Right.
unless, maybe they're a kiddo in recovery for an eating disorder and they need to gain weight and get back to a healthy weight. Someone with pretty severe anorexia, we will do blind weights and discuss it. But I don't often check weight because we're trying to take the focus off of it. Those are kind of more the objective measures. And then we look at, okay, what's your intake like? Like a lot of my clients will do a food journal, but without numbers. It's more of like a food and mood journal and just looking at overall balance and triggers and like, okay, you overate at that meal and you felt really guilty. Like what contributed to that? What led into that? Were you having a really stressful day? Did you not eat enough at lunch? Were you missing out on protein or fats? So looking at that a lot, and then looking at a lot of measures of, body image, relationship to food, guilt and shame with eating. Are they, movement? How often are they moving? Because a lot of people that struggle with their relationship to food also struggle with their relationship to movement. So that's also a fun part of our work is
Like
kind of
they over exercise or under exercise.
so
Could be either.
all or nothing, right? They either like do a workout like 30 days every day that's like punishment and they hate it and then they're burnt out, or they're off the wagon and they're not dieting so they don't move at all. So that's part of intuitive eating is finding joyful movement.
Get the balance.
Like kind of taking the exercise, like classic, like weight loss fitness out of it and saying like, well, how do you just like to move your body? Do you like to like hike? Do you like to play with your kids? Like it doesn't have to be like an hour in the gym where you're sweating profusely. Like, and I find that, and the research supports this, when you take that approach, people are much more likely to want to exercise and they're exercising more and it's more sustainable.
Yeah. Do you look at genetics at all?
No,
Does that
I
matter?
mean, we talk more about, certainly with eating disorders, there is a genetic component. So I'll ask their family history. It's more so genetics as it relates to body size. So if someone's family history genetically are just in larger bodies, that helps us with our conversation about body image. Like, we can't expect to be a size 0 if everyone in your family, average build, not small and thin versus I had a client once who struggled with being underweight. She didn't have an eating disorder per our assessment.
Need to bulk up.
But all her genetics, everyone was tiny. And so it informs our practice and our treatment approach.
Are you of the theory that if you're a male and you don't weigh 200 plus, that you're you got to be too something to do something kind of thing? Like if you're under
Never
200,
heard that. Never heard that.
You didn't hear that? Yeah, if you're not 200 pounds, you're
weak.
weak.
Is that essentially it?
I thought that was in the
What's
research.
What's Brendan weigh?
Tell
He's
me,
under 200. But
Is
he?
Mm-hmm.
is he doing anything in life then?
Yeah.
He is?
He
What is
is.
it?
We got to do a study on him then.
That's the study you need to do is
Yes.
you have to be 200,
2 pounds.
Yeah.
200 plus to do something.
What does Brendan think of all this?
It's pretty cool. Like he's learned a lot. I've been almost doing this for a decade and he's learned a lot as in like body size and like weight stigma. And he's so cute. He's always like, I educated my colleague on eating disorders and how it's not about like wanting to look a certain way. Like there's often a trauma component and the complexity of it. So it's cute. I mean, he finds it fascinating.
Did he know you before intuitive eating? Before Caroline
We
Intuitive
met when
Eating?
I was in my internship. So yeah, definitely.
So you were still like traditional dietitian,
Yes.
and then you made the conversion, and he was
Yes. He stuck with me through the
nice.
conversion.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I feel like that's important.
Yeah.
That shows a good character
does
in
he
him.
make dinners sometime?
Actually, he's an amazing chef. Like
Really?
he worked in restaurants.
You're
back in the
going
day.
far as calling him a chef, not even
Yes.
cook.
I mean,
know.
I'm telling you, this
Wow.
man can plate a meal beautifully, like art.
No kidding.
But it only happens like once every 2 months.
As an artist in the kitchen.
So
That's
it's
awesome.
hilarious. Like he won't cook regularly. Like I'm regularly the cook,
Yeah.
not a chef, cook. And then he'll just like come out on a Tuesday night and he's like whipping up something and it's literal art. And I'm just like, where did this come from? And then it won't show up for another 3 months.
Just got inspired.
Like,
He
this
was
needs to
just
happen
listening.
once a
Guessing.
week.
Yeah.
This is intuition.
So, all right. So on that note, what does it look like if you have 4 different people in your family. All of them intuitively want to eat something different.
Ooh,
Ooh, good
that's
question.
great.
So
Hey,
intuitive
so
eating,
good.
Do you like that one?
So
it's
good.
like, all right, you're having pizza, you're having tacos. So that's more of just like people are in the mood for different foods. Intuitive eating is a little bit more complex than that, if that makes sense. So
Well, so for me, I need lots of protein, obviously,
Right.
to maintain my
Yeah.
obviously.
But my kids probably need more carbohydrates. They're running around all the
Mhm.
time doing thing, and then the portion size or what my wife would want
Totally
versus
different,
what I
yeah.
would want is different. And she's like, I'm not making 4 different meals, and I'm
Right.
like, I get that, and I
No,
agree with that.
no one wants to be a
But
short
then I was
order
like, all
type.
right, we're gonna have to decide who gets
Yeah.
what.
Yeah. So it's funny you bring that up because I actually had a client this week that we were talking about that because she was struggling with cooking for her whole family and she has picky kids and her husband has different eating, preferences than her. And what we kind of came up with together was having like a base meal, like, okay, pasta and a sauce, for example. And maybe the kiddos don't want all the vegetables in it, but mom does. So maybe you feed the kiddos, smaller portion of the pasta with the red sauce and the Parmesan and a little bit of chicken, and then maybe extra chicken on hubby's. And then, mom wants to prioritize adding more fiber and being a little bit healthier. So she loads the final bit of her pasta with extra veggies.
Boom.
Good.
I mean, you could spend a ton of money and get takeout from 4 places, but no,
Yeah.
that's
What
not ideal.
about like if you and this is are you ready for something weird? This
Let's
is
go.
okay.
Oh boy, is it about the moon?
No, I'm not going. Well, we could if you want to talk about the moon, we can but that's different. This is about protein intake for
Yeah.
Randy.
Okay.
Have you
Yeah.
heard of people doing lines like up their nose of protein
Just
powder
like straight protein to the nose? No.
and butthole and
Wow.
or butthole?
I mean, quick absorption, probably.
That's what I was wondering because Randy,
Oh, I've never
Post
he
heard of
dabbles.
I've
in
never
this.
heard of that, and that is that a real thing?
It's a real thing. Google. I mean, maybe don't Google it because you might get some weird stuff. But I get weird stuff that pops up. I think my algorithm
Oh,
is.
gosh, what are you looking at? On
It's
the
just
internet?
chaos.
Terrifying.
But it's for things like that where it's like just quick ways to get increased protein that people would just snort it or absorb it up the butt.
Very
Like just like
interesting.
they're doing the alcohol. Like kids
Well,
these
yeah.
days,
Kids these days.
they're doing
I don't
tons
wanna
of
know.
butt stuff. But they're doing like alcohol chugs in their butt.
I've
You've heard of that? Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I think that's where the pathway ends up in protein.
Well,
It's like, wait, what are they doing? Oh no, there's protein in the butt.
well, in a sense, it does make sense, right? Because
Quick and easy,
like
right?
sports nutrition,
It's not. There's nothing easy about shoving protein up your butt.
well, think about liquid. Like this is why I like protein shakes and like chocolate milk or like preferred
Just drink
post
it, yeah.
workout because liquids are faster to be
Right.
absorbed in the bloodstream for recovery. And so maybe that's the
Could it
thought.
get broken? Like that's what I was thinking. Could it even get broken down and used that way? Like I don't even know how.
because
where
it's
the
not even going through
mechanism-
the GI tract, right?
Right.
So
Where's
that
the
doesn't
mechanism?
make sense to me,
I
but
agree.
I don't study that per se.
All right.
That doesn't come up with my clients, I'd say.
Yeah. Don't do any studies on that. All right. This isn't along the lines of that. Fecal transplants.
Mhm.
Is that something you're a proponent of? People donating poop for others to like re-inoculate the gut biome?
I'll be honest. I don't know enough about it yet. I haven't dove into the research about it. I've heard a little bit about it, and like, if it's backed by science, I'm all for it. Dietitians are just trained to be backed.
Well,
by
the
science.
the question I always try to run everything through in my filter is in nature, would that occur? Like, would you come across somebody else's poop and get it in your butt? Probably not. But maybe
But
there's
maybe
a
in their
could see 'em
sure eat
eating
someone
it. I could
else's.
see it eating it. Yes.
Yeah, dogs eat. my
They're
dog
drinking
eats their
urine.
own
Well,
shit.
urine drinking is a big thing right now. That's a huge thing.
How did we get here again?
Well, I want to listen. All the weird stuff that people need to know about. People know about fats and carbs and proteins. They don't know about
It's old news
fecal
now.
stuff.
if they come across the urine drinking. We don't want them doing it if it's not good for them. Which I can't imagine it. But again, maybe you're in the wild and
Maybe.
thirsty.
I had my fill of poop talk early in my career when I specialized more in GI disorders.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm sick of
You're
talking
done with
about
that.
poop. So
So
I don't know.
much
I don't know
skip
about
it.
the poop
Just
anymore.
All right, don't know
Yeah.
much about those.
I know
Okay.
about gut microbiome in other senses, but
Yeah.
not fecal transplants.
Yeah,
Well, I
so
think-
because on that line, antibiotics, I always think are destroying our
Terrible.
gut.
They
but
are.
McDonald's is loaded with antibiotics,
Meats.
and so is almost every other food. So it's
Well,
in-
that's why girls are getting their periods at 8 and 9 now.
yes,
right.
Yeah.
With
Like-
hormones and all the stuff. Yeah.
yes. That's so. Even for my kids, I'm like, we're not eating. They're like, why don't we eat that? Because it makes you sick. So they just know like there's certain foods that make them sick. But I
Yeah.
don't want them to have an eating disorder. But
Yeah.
I do want them to think that McDonald's will kill them.
So here's
Yeah. Black and white.
black and
Just
white.
clear.
Yeah. I mean, literally, the bulk of my practice is just helping people think a little bit more in the gray when it comes
Yeah.
to food, nutrition, and body image. So, yeah, gentle nutrition is another term we use. It's, kind of going back to what we talked about earlier. If someone is interested in, having a healthier approach with food, you can look into intuitive eating. There's a book, and there's basically 10 principles that are kind of like stepping stones to having a healthier relationship with food and their bodies. And one of the principles is all about gentle nutrition. So gentle nutrition is taking nutrition knowledge, but it's pairing it with body knowledge, and it's flexible. It's for life, right? So it's saying, okay, whole grains are healthy for us. Does that mean we only eat whole grains forever? No, it means, sometimes we're going to have white rice. Like sushi is my favorite food.
Mhm.
I don't like brown rice sushi, but
Yeah.
I'll eat whole grains other aspects of my week. And so you can take into account like knowing, okay, like this food has more nutrition for me. This is going to be a little bit healthier as an everyday food. And then this is just a fun food. Like maybe it's not nutritious, but it's how you, celebrate your birthday or whatever. So that's another way I describe looking at food instead of like healthy versus like junk foods, which
Yeah.
really is full of judgment. It's okay, what are our everyday foods that fuel our bodies and our whole grains, our fruits, our vegetables, our proteins, our healthy fats? And then what are fun foods?
Yeah.
And that's a better way to look at it, just like work and play. We're not going to work every day for the rest of our lives. That's miserable. And if we only were on vacation all the time, we probably couldn't pay the bills.
Mhm.
So we need a balance of both. And that's how it is with nutrition. We can't be so black and white and polarizing, because that'll just lead us to overeat our fun foods later on. We have to have that balance.
It's like intuitive spending.
Mm.
Is that a thing?
That's what I was thinking of when you were saying that. is-
Yeah, it's like, okay.
You're an
We need
well,
this
you're an
money for the
intuitive
essentials.
financial advisor.
well,
Coin
well,
that
if
term.
because I feel similarly to that, where most
Yeah.
people, if they really only bought things that they liked and needed, could just intuitively spend. But the Dave Ramsey world seems to work for them because they just spend on everything. They're, oh,
Mhm.
that looks cool. That looks cool. You want that? I'll have that. Someone made fun of my vehicle. I'll buy a new one. I need new shoes. These ones got dirty. Whatever else they're spending all
Right.
their money on. But like credit card debt's going through the roof. Everybody's in trouble. Inflation's going crazy. And there's just this spending thing that I'm like, so at some point we have to figure it out. And I think we've done that in the nutrition world. We've tried like limit your calories, don't eat this, gone the other extreme. And I think it's kind of happening in the financial world too.
Yeah, interesting.
But maybe the
comparison.
world needs intuitive spending.
Someone started up.
Mhm.
You gotta
We
train
are.
Side
someone.
hustle.
Let's train someone. So, all right. So, walk us through then the process of what somebody goes through. So, let's say that I think people can be addicted to Diet Coke. I've asked some people like, hey, have you ever thought about not eating 4 Diet Cokes a day? And they look at you like you're
Yeah.
insane,
That's more of the caffeine too,
terrified.
probably.
Yeah, there's just something in it
Yeah.
that like
Yeah.
they look like you kicked their puppy.
Yeah.
Even the idea of not having 4.
Yeah.
So I kind of looked at it like it was an addiction, probably an
Yeah.
addiction. But I don't know. So what does it look like for someone who's, let's say, or drinking? There's people that are drinking 20 Mountain Dews a day, or
Yeah.
they're drinking a whole 9 Monster Energy drinks a day.
Yeah.
And they just can't stop, and their body wants it. And they
Yeah.
don't want to restrict themselves, but
Yeah.
they're kind of like an all or nothing person when it comes to that.
Totally. Some people, yeah, we'd look at it from like, okay, how can we like, okay, this is a health habit we want to incorporate. We want to decrease the added sugar and increase hydration. And so we would individualize it. We'd say, okay, do you need to stop cold turkey? Is that what's going to work for you versus slowly decreasing? You know, it just depends on the person. But yeah, I don't doubt that some people just need to like cut it out for a period and then kind of assess what's going on.
And then get back. In the AA world, they always say, don't go where it's slippery. Meaning, if
Right.
you're trying to stop drinking,
Mhm.
don't go hang out at a bar all day long, because eventually you're probably going to drink
Yeah.
again. But do you find that in the intuitive eating world, the sugar world, the caffeine, aspartame?
You know, we're looking more at the root causes of why they're overdoing it.
You get to the
Right.
root cause, they don't have
Root
to worry
cause.
about it anymore. Gone.
Well, I mean, yeah, sometimes when you deal with the trauma, the poverty, the, you know, stressors, the
Mhm.
psychology, it can then heal itself,
Yeah.
right? So, especially when it comes to eating disorders, majority of folks who struggle with eating disorders have some kind of trauma background. And so you're working on the trauma with, you know, the behavior modification and the treatment of the eating disorder. But yeah, most people with eating disorders can't fully recover unless they deal with the root stuff as well.
That's good.
And so, like, even Mountain Dew example, like, I'd look at why are we drinking 10 per day? Is it, you know, how did this start? Is it like, did it start with energy? Like, you're not eating regularly, so you're tired and you're leaning on sugar and caffeine to get you through the day? You know, are you not thirsty and that's how you're trying to seek hydration? Like, we would just look at it from so many facets to figure out, okay, how do we need to deal with this?
Right. And maybe once they understand why they're doing it, then they can modify it.
And that can also help take the shame out of it. Like, there's just so much shame that walks in the door of my office. And once we take away the shame and they understand, oh, this is why I'm doing this, or this is why I'm primed to have an eating disorder, it's not my fault.
Mhm.
It's not my fault I struggle with body image when my mom put me in Weight Watchers at age 11, right?
Mhm. I
We
know
take
that
the shame
story.
out of it, they actually can.
Not personally. I know someone. All right. So, what do you think the biggest difference in the U.S. is, though, compared to other
Mm.
countries? Because
Yeah.
clearly,
different.
we like I do tend to think other countries just kind of eat and live
Mhm.
life, and it's pretty normal.
Yep.
But in the U.S., if we're doing that, we're doing it way wrong because we are the
Yes.
heaviest and sickest country on the planet.
Yes. So I like to spout some research here. So diet culture is huge in the US, right? Like, we're obsessed with dieting and thinness and the quote unquote obesity epidemic, and it's actually making us less healthy. So there's tons of evidence that shows that diet is a consistent predictor of weight gain. And most people don't
People that are
recognize
on
that.
diets, you're saying?
The
like
more
more
someone
people are
diets, the
on-
more they're going to gain weight long term.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it's the irony that we're trying to do something to control our weight, and that's what's making us gain weight. And, you know, I mean, they've studied twins, and the one twin that dieted more had a higher BMI, more struggles with binge eating. It's just, there's tons of studies showing it, and there's so many reasons for it. One is just as basic as dieting slows our metabolism, and it's unsustainable. So then we go back to eating and we gain weight.
Yeah.
So one aspect is dieting. Dieting is making us larger and sicker and have more disordered eating patterns, which leads to weight gain. And then we also, they talk about this in the intuitive eating book, and, you know, we are riddled with guilt and shame around food. In other countries, one of their tenets of healthy eating is pleasure, right? So like Italy, they prioritize cooking more, eating at
Mhm.
home versus eating out. They
Right.
walk more in their culture. And there's not all this shame and guilt around food. And so I think, yeah, part of it is just our, you know, culture of working many hours, sedentary jobs, lots of fast food. Of course, that's part of it. But it's also our relationship to food that's making us less healthy, and
Yeah.
weight stigma. And people are afraid to go to the doctor because they're getting stigmatized for their weight. And then diagnoses are getting delayed and they're getting sicker. And then it's blamed on their weight. When it's just,
Yeah. And I think to what Randy was saying earlier, the amount of toxins that, like things that we call food here, they don't call food in other countries.
Right.
They're just edible.
things are illegal
not
in
even
other
allowed.
countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think like it's just an
Absolutely.
accumulation. It's almost like not taking the garbage out of your house. It's just like you just keep packing in stuff that you can't get rid
Yeah.
of.
we can't deny our food system screwed up. I mean, we can't. That's not like we can talk about that and talk about intuitive eating. No one's saying go eat crap.
Yeah,
We're
right.
saying what is your view of eating crap and is that contributing to your problem with it?
So what do you think, like in the school system, coming from like the nutrition dietary world
Yeah.
and in traditional schooling, how in the hell do we have school systems that I don't think any dietitian on the planet would be like, this is what we should have in schools for kids to eat?
Yeah, it's
Would
tough.
they?
So school
Like,
nutrition.
where does the advice come from that they're getting? And I know we know, but like, if there's experts in the field of nutrition, we should be looking at that. And because it's a forced thing, you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to buy lunch, here's the options.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'd love to know your thoughts on how that
Yeah.
changes.
So part of my internship was actually focused on school nutrition. So I got to, shadow dietitians in different school districts and learned a lot. And they are doing really great things. Like they were doing lots of farm to table stuff and education for the kids and school gardens. So there is a lot of good stuff being done. To be honest, I think part of the problem is budget. Like there's not a big budget for the kitchens in schools. So they're very limited on what they can buy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like they have to buy cheap frozen stuff. They don't have access to a lot of just like fresh, good foods. So I think budget's one thing. Another is what they were finding is when they pushed too healthy of food, kids were putting it in the trash. So they kind of had to meet in the middle where, if kids were getting a beautifully healthy, balanced meal, they weren't eating it, which
Right.
is sad, And so that was something I remember learning about. I'm no expert in school nutrition, but that was part of the problem they were having is like it was going to waste. So they're like, why are we spending money on this?
Mhm.
And so they kind of went back to like what kids like chicken nuggets and french fries. And that's what made more money for the school system. So it
pretty
does
wild,
kind of
Eric.
go back to financial stuff, which is why a lot of our food system is screwed up, right? Big corporations.
Well, and I know that living in Canada, so I'm unique because I lived in Canada
Did you
for a
live in
long time
Canada?
and I've lived here for a long time. And it's probably the biggest culture shock is being
Yeah.
here and everything is loaded
So
in
different.
oils and chemicals and you just the size of everything is more.
Yeah.
So if you're going to get a bag of chips or you're going to get a
Mhm.
chocolate bar, or you're going to get a soda, it's just bigger.
Yeah.
So you have to throw it away. You have to throw more away to eat the same amount that you were before.
Yeah.
And it doesn't taste better, but it makes you want to eat more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think there's a component that I love the intuitive eating stuff. I think there's probably two prong. Like I think everybody should deal with all their trauma and their
Yeah.
problems. And then I think also they should stay away from McDonald's.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just how are we telling people
Or-
to do that? Right.
Right. Yeah. So
Right.
what would it look like? Let's say that you were
Yeah,
you
good
were
question.
the president of
Oh,
Wow. I didn't see him going that way.
love that.
Yep. Let's say you were the president of the free world.
Oh my gosh, that's too much on my shoulders. I
And
don't
they-
want that job.
Well, and they just said let's do some policies to get our bodies better, body image,
Incentivize
health, nutrition.
farmers for better food systems. So it's
Yep.
easier to eat more balanced.
Mhm.
Chiropractic, obviously.
Obviously,
Go on.
this is hard. Oh my gosh. More mental health stuff because
Yeah.
kids don't, we're not taught how to regulate our emotions, and people often turn to dieting or disordered eating as a way to numb, distract, find self-esteem. Most of the problems with food aren't just about the food. So more kind of access to mental health stuff. It's food access, kind of eliminating diet
Right.
culture paired with psychology, mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wish we lived in a culture where we walked places. Changing the
Yeah.
infrastructure, maybe.
That's a good idea.
That would be massive.
I had a job years ago where I had to drive 2 hours one way, work 8 hours, and then drive
Whoa.
2 hours home once a week. And then, I covered nursing homes. It was
Dang,
not
that's a
my
lot.
favorite job.
I can't imagine nursing homes.
Nursing home
That's a whole
nutrition.
different
Oh,
world.
Lord. You're just trying to get them to eat. You're like, please enjoy your cake. You're
Yeah,
90. Like,
anything.
dude.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's, I mean, it's so complex. That's why there's no easy answer to like how to promote health in our society.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it is interesting how other countries really are all about
Right.
pleasure with eating, and we're like, oh my God, you shouldn't like enjoy
Right.
that cookie. It's so bad, and that does play a role.
But they do take a long time to eat in some places, which
Well, they
I had a
probably eat
hard
more
time with.
mindfully. That's another aspect of what I do is, we're helping individuals tune into their actual hunger cues and actual fullness cues. So even if the portion's huge, they can stop when they're comfortably done. And there's no, emotional baggage that's causing them to overeat. Like, oh my God, this is so good, so I have to finish it. Or I never get this food. It's not allowed, so I'm going to
Yeah.
eat it all now.
Right. There's a starving child in Africa.
Oh, yeah.
I can't throw this away right
Yes,
Classic.
yes.
Richard
Clean Plate
steps
Club.
in
I
line.
help a lot of people navigate that, growing up with that. Or it's interesting, anytime someone comes in and they struggle with eating really quickly, I always ask them, did you grow up with a big family? And they're like, yeah, I had 5 siblings. I'm like, there you go.
Mhm.
Right. And so if you have to protect your food, or if you don't eat now,
Yeah.
someone else is going to eat it, that plays a lifelong role in your eating behaviors.
Big Trav was always trying to get all the food.
I tried to eat all my brother's stuff too all the time.
So in tradition, like the schooling you went to,
Yeah.
do you use any of that?
I use the nutrition science aspect and like disease management.
Yeah.
It
Other than that,
was
because
very weight centric. So no, I
Right.
mean,
and the food
everything
pyramid,
I learned now is nothing I learned in school.
that's kind of what
Crazy.
when people ask me like, should I go back to school to be? It's like I'd rather you not. I'd rather you actually like here's a handful of books or like
Experience, like work with
Yes.
humans.
Mhm.
Honestly, everything I learned is from working with humans.
Yeah. Our nutrition teacher in chiropractic school was one of the unhealthiest people.
Yeah, well, it really
Oh
was.
my
It was
God.
crazy. And it was like how it was like an ongoing thing in our school of like, how do we even do this? And he's just given the,
Wow.
theories and
Yeah.
and numbers and stuff. And it was just ridiculous.
We were also taught chiropractic from people who had never really adjusted anybody before too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't learn everything from a book. Yeah, I worked in a hospital setting for many years, and the cardiologist smoked.
Just ripping
Yeah,
daggers
I'm like, dude,
in between
that
patients.
makes no sense.
And then telling people you got to stop
it
smoking.
makes no sense to me.
Yeah. You got to go to people that do what they're saying
Practice
to
what you
to do.
preach. Yeah.
Yeah. What about a couple more questions here? This Ozempic craze, how do
Yeah.
you see this ending? Because it's
Totally.
looks messy.
That's a good question. I haven't had that question before of how I see it ending. People just ask my opinion or,
Mhm.
all that. It's, once again, my standard answer. It's very complex. I think it's one of those things that there's not a ton of research yet. That's the one thing that scares me is it can be very amazing for some people. Like I've heard some people, it's just like life-changing for them, which is awesome. That's why I'm not like polarizing, like absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I like to tell people, okay, there are some dangers. It's just like any diet. It doesn't fix the root of your binge eating or, it doesn't make you healthy.
Fixes nothing.
Like maybe if you struggle with diabetes, of course, there's some great research on blood sugar management and decreasing risk of CVA and stroke. So like there's some good evidence there if you really need it. But just providing Ozempic for weight loss, they're doing it at such higher doses as well that there's severe GI side effects. I mean, I had a client come in who couldn't even stomach 1,000 calories a day because of it. And so how is that promoting health, right? There's also some research in its infancy about a link with, I believe it's either pancreatic cancer.
yeah, gotta be.
So we really don't know the long-term thing. My biggest thing is if you start it, you're going to have to be on it for life because
Right.
research does show once you stop, just like a diet, the weight's going to come back, if not with a vengeance. Just like the research shows, all dieters regain their weight
Right.
lost by year 5.
That's wild.
So the only positive thing that I've heard about it so far is, well, they do get skinnier. They like how they look, but there's this big change in the number of people needing knee replacements
Yeah.
and spine replacements and hip replacements because they weigh 80 pounds
Right.
less, and all of a sudden they're canceling all their knee surgeries. So
Yeah.
there's these sales reps
doctors
and
are
all
like,
the knee
"Shit."
manufacturers, and they're all
Orthopedic
worried about it.
surgeons. Uh-oh.
Honestly,
Yeah.
tens of thousands of people on the brink of losing their job because all of a sudden all these people don't need all these joint
Right.
replacements because they don't have as much weight. Not that I'm
Yeah.
I'm for it, because I think there's all these other side effects we don't
Yeah.
know about yet.
My opinion is if you're going to consider it, work with a dietitian, because then they can at least meet you where you're at, make sure you're still getting adequate nutrition, dealing with any GI side effects, and still working on your relationship to food and body image issues.
Yeah.
Because we know body image isn't about the size of your body. Like every single one of my clients, you know, no matter whether they were their smallest or their largest, they were like, I was never happy. It's not about the body.
Yeah.
So if you struggle with body image issues, getting to a smaller weight isn't just automatically going to heal everything. So if you're going to consider it, at least work with a dietitian and maybe therapist, and, you know, still kind of try to get adequate nutrition.
If somebody's going to school to be a dietitian, what are all the areas that they can graduate and work in?
It's so huge. Like,
Is
it's
it like-
crazy.
Because
I
why
had a-
doesn't a family doctor have one? Or do they?
They just refer to us.
Okay.
I get a ton of fax referrals from doctors' offices. I will say, so I used to work at Lexington Med in their inpatient, just part-time. And they did have an outpatient dietitian. Most hospital outpatient dietitians are just doing a lot of nutrition education, you know, diabetes, stuff like that.
At this point, though, isn't all that computerized? Like the hospital punches in, it's like this person, and it's shitty
It's not
food.
great. It's, oh yeah, yeah.
That's what that's what
No,
like blows
like,
my mind.
I was ready to leave the hospital immediately.
Yeah.
It's not a great
Right.
place to promote health.
And there's plenty of money there that they could
Yeah.
increase their food as opposed to schools, let's say.
Yeah.
Um,
And as
That's
a
what I can't
dietitian, you're not
understand.
making change in a hospital setting. It's like, here's a handout on heart
Right.
health. You just got out of surgery. You're not listening to me.
yeah.
And that's why I wanted to do private practice.
Yeah.
You can make much more lasting change.
So private practice, hospital, is there like health coaching?
Yeah, go back.
Schools.
Eating disorders, school nutrition, community nutrition. I once had a teacher said she worked in a prison before.
Really?
Anywhere where like food's involved or like health is involved.
Gotcha.
So diabetes management, that's a huge facet, right?
Are there things though that you're restricted to give advice on? Like what couldn't you give advice on that would be outside of your
scope of practice.
Yeah.
So here's a good example, right? Like, since I deal with eating disorders and they often occur with trauma, like we do discuss that, but I'm not healing someone's trauma. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That's playing a role. Let's talk about talk to your therapist about that.
Yeah.
So like, just in the field I'm in, I can't dive into like someone's deep trauma wounds, right? That's the therapist role.
What if you say something like, if I were a licensed therapist, here would be my advice?
Well, to be honest, I'm wanting to go back to school one day
To
and
do that?
do therapy. Yeah, because I love the therapeutic aspect so much. Like I've done tons of awesome extra training in like therapeutic modalities, and then I just apply it to nutrition and body image. But I do feel stuck sometimes because I'm like, oh, there's so much here that I can't talk about, even
Right.
though I know enough, right? So yeah, maybe one day
Okay.
I'll go back and become a therapist and get to talk more about just like, you know,
That's
nutrition
yeah.
science and stuff.
Yeah. Are there any prepackaged meal companies that you like? Like people like
Yeah.
they're basically like I think a lot of times the stress of like I have to make this
Yes.
so because my wife just got into I forget the company already. We haven't got it.
Factor.
Or Factor, yeah.
I've seen so many ads for that.
We haven't got
I've
it
heard
yet.
great things. Yeah.
But she just wants that to just not think the
Yeah.
thing comes and you just eat.
Totally. I'm all for that. I'm all for meal delivery companies, as
Yeah.
long as it's not like a diety one where there's like no carbs or
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like tiny little portions. As long as it's like a balanced meal and it makes feeding yourself less stressful, that's awesome. So yeah, Factor I've heard is great. There's one called like Freshly that closed down, which was unfortunate. That was a
Yeah.
good one. It was all fresh. You just microwave it. I like Sunbasket a lot. They
Yeah.
have there's a dietitian on staff. It's a lot of whole foods, balanced meals, and they also have the option to add like groceries on.
Yeah.
So like, extra chicken breasts if you want to cook that. And they do have some meals that are just heat and eat.
Now you're not a proponent of microwaving though, correct? Have you looked into the research on that?
He's like, wait.
Oh God, she is. No, but for sure it changes the nutritional quality of whatever the food was before
any
you nuke
cooking
it.
does, but
Yeah.
we shouldn't all just eat raw food all the time.
Yeah. I'm
it-
saying like you'd throw it on the stove or
Campfire.
In an
campfire.
ideal world,
We
yeah.
have a campfire in our house.
Yeah. He did. Literally, my husband was just in Africa. They did that.
Yeah.
Over.
See, that goes back to it's natural.
Primal
It makes
days.
sense. That's why I think like cooking on the stove or oven makes more sense than
Yeah.
a microwave that would change.
Yeah,
the-
think about it. Yes, in an ideal world, we'd all eat whole foods. We'd all have all the time in the world to home cook every meal, but we don't live that life in a bubble. So we have to be realistic. And if someone is at work at their office and all they have is a microwave and they brought in a fresh home cooked meal and they have to microwave it to have a balanced meal and balance their blood sugar, that's awesome. We have to work with what's possible, what's accessible. And sure, when you have the right conditions and you can make a choice,
ideally
great.
you're not. Yeah, ideal. What about supplements?
Yeah.
What do you think about supplements?
So we're not trained to offer advice on supplements. Some
Really?
dietitians are if they go like the functional route. Our thing with supplements is food first, right? So it's always going to be better absorbed and more bioavailable in the body if it comes from food. Everything, right? They've studied this. I always give the example of like beta carotene, right? So like what makes carrots orange. They found that helped reduce cancer. So they're like, great, let's put it in a pill. Let's extract it. And they found that actually like increased rates of cancer. So food comes perfectly naturally packaged for a reason. It has all the vitamins and
Right.
minerals and fiber, and it's synergistic.
Kind of like God knew what he was doing.
Yeah. So the bodies use it better.
Yeah.
So absolutely supplements have a place in one's, eating pattern if they're obviously deficient in something and they need a boost. If someone's vegan and they don't eat meat, they need B12. Absolutely. If someone, pregnant women, of course, and breastfeeding women need extra iron and, folic acid. So, yeah, it's one of those things where, most of them aren't FDA approved. So you just got to be careful with them. I take supplements.
FDA, who cares about the FDA really, right?
It's crazy. Yeah.
Think about some of the shit they've approved that later on is like, oh my God.
It's insane.
Yeah, it
That's
goes
why
back to the topic of like this stuff's
Oh,
illegal in
God,
other
yeah.
countries
Yes.
sometimes. I don't know.
All right. Two other lighthearted ones. Thoughts on our swag. The fact that we're going.
Swag is
just-
fire. Swag is fire.
Would you wear one of these shirts?
Yeah.
No, honestly. And tell me where you'd wear it.
I sleep in t-shirts. I'm not like a
Okay, so
daily
for your
t-shirt
husband,
wearer.
I get it. They're so hot. You want your
Brandon would
husband.
like it.
That's
he'd
right.
Love
Yeah.
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You like the hats too?
Yeah. I'm a hat girl. I do like hats.
Okay, nice.
I'm all about the skincare. So, sun protection in the summer. Got to stay.
Oh, I love the
wrinkle-free.
sun. See, we're opposites on some things.
Oh, I love
here.
the sun, but I just cover my face.
Oh, okay.
But like, fry me. Like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You
I
love it.
have a pool. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll be out there.
You have to
all
look into
summer.
the sunscreens though, because some of those are
Oh,
so
God,
toxic.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
get them.
The ones that go on so smooth and they disappear right away and they're waterproof for 8 hours.
sprays.
Those are so bad.
Questionable.
Yeah.
But there are ones like my wife makes some, and there's
makes
some
them?
makes
That's so
some,
cool.
yeah. And there's some that are you have to like buy them online or at
Yeah.
Whole Foods or somewhere, and they don't go
Badger.
on as easily and they don't last quite as long. But they don't get there's not as
They
many
don't have
chemicals
cancer.
to
They
get
don't have
absorbed.
skin
They don't
cancer
have
causing
cancer.
chemicals in them.
Yes.
Well, we did the mineral sunscreen phase
Yeah.
because when I was pregnant and then just with my kid, and oh yeah, that's like that shit won't rub in. It's pure white. You look like a ghost for a little bit.
Well,
But
here's
it
the
works.
thing: if it's too unhealthy to have when you're pregnant, we shouldn't have
Yeah.
it after we're not
That's a great
pregnant.
point.
Yeah, but really, like raw fish,
It's like quitting.
we can have raw fish.
It's like quitting
Mm.
smoking once you find out you're pregnant, but then starting smoking afterwards. It's like it's probably not great just in general.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Do you think the future of nutrition is we all have like just ports on our body and it just gets
Ooh,
stuffed
Oh, I
into
hope
us?
not. There's
just
no pleasure
zap
there.
or something.
Well,
Kinda.
that's tube feeding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was kind of thinking. Like, if you wanted to get things quote unquote man-made perfect, you could just
You
zap it into
could.
the
Just put a tube up your
just
butt.
get it- not up your butt.
No, it can
But-
go in the nose, the
It-
mouth, and the
yeah.
stomach.
Yeah.
Not the butt yet.
It would be nice if you could just
Like poured it right
put
in,
in
like,
what you want.
almost like right here, so you get in all the
in your
good stuff up
neck,
top.
straight in your neck.
No,
And you
I
just-
hope that's not the future because
Almost like
trust me,
your car.
I've
You just
I've
fuel
worked
up.
with people with
Yeah.
feeding tubes, and I worked in the hospital for many years. I worked with COVID
It's messy.
patients. It's horrible. It's
Yeah.
not a life you want to
Yeah.
live. You want to be able to enjoy food. There's like pleasure in food is there for a reason.
And then my last question was, what do you like about cats?
Oh my god, how do you know I like cats?
I was creeping on your thing. On
I
your
literally
Instagram.
This is really embarrassing, but I just ordered a shirt and it says MILF and it says man, I love felines.
Oh,
I can't
God,
wait to
I
wear
knew
it.
I had
So
to
good.
ask.
So good.
It's so I almost wore it, but I was like, I don't know. This is not the aesthetic of like me being a
So you're a
dietitian.
big cat. How long you like
I like
cats
cats
for?
and dogs. I like all
Oh, you
animals.
like all
That's the
animals.
thing. Like I have a cat. I have 2 cats and a dog. I just love animals, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I grew up with cats. They're super chill. Like my husband's become a cat person because our dog is a pain in the ass sometimes, and
Really?
cats are chill. If you get
The right
every-
cat.
yes, if
Okay.
you find a good cat that loves you and that's it, you're a cat freak.
But you never know if they're happy, they're sad. They just are. It's same face over and over, and
I
it
don't
looks
know.
like
you
they're
haven't
gonna
met my
kill
cat.
you.
Oh, you haven't met my little
Cats?
cat.
I feel like whenever you look at a cat, it's like they want to just stab you in the eye.
Dude, mine legit
I agree
smiles.
with
Like
Really?
we rescued her. She was a little baby. And she's just we joke, she's just like so grateful to not live on the streets anymore that she is like she'll purr on your face, like she
Really?
literally smiles, she'll like headbutt you. Oh yeah, she's the sweetest thing.
What are the
on planet
names?
Earth. Millie and then
Uh-oh.
Clyde. He's a cool cat. He's a big Maine Coon, the giant fluffy ones. Like
Yeah.
people say he looks like a bobcat. So he was like our dude. Like he was our first pet. Loved my husband, and we moved, and he decided he hates us, so he doesn't come home. He basically goes to my neighbor's house, and I'm
He's
like,
an outdoor cat?
he's an outdoor cat, like fully feral now.
What?
Yeah, he's fully feral. Like he'll hiss when I go pet him now, and like I'm like, dude, you used to like cuddle me. What's
Back
up?
to the wild.
He's
See,
literally back
That's
to the
how I
streets.
picture cats.
He
Is
got-
they hiss at you when
He's
you go
back
near
to the
them.
streets.
because he's listening to his intuition. He's like, I'm a wild animal. I'm not freaking eating cat food. I'm going
No.
out and killing some
Well,
mice.
I'll be honest. I looked out the window once and I caught my neighbor feeding him a bite of her sandwich. So he was like, "Dude,
Whoa.
I'm not going home.
No, yeah.
Like, this is great."
You
And,
know what animals are always loyal no matter what? Dogs.
oh yeah, I have a black
Cats?
lab. She's
Yes,
fabulous. but
exactly. I just think.
She does have separation
another level.
anxiety, so her
The
bark
black
is
lab.
a lot. Yeah, she's cute.
Do you let her eat as much as she wants? Do you just
Well,
intuitive eat
we're
your
going
dog?
through the phase now where the vet is getting concerned because she's eating all the toddler's food that he's throwing to her and feeding her on the down low.
I love that.
So she'll literally eat anything. Like she's eating too much human food, unfortunately, lately.
I knew
She's
you
a
were
good
big
vacuum,
cat
though.
person. Cat
I
lady.
love the MILF shirt. That's hilarious.
Oh, it's so good.
You're gonna get a million comments on that. Are you
It's
gonna
so
wear it? Will
good.
you wear it to the farmers market, Soda City?
Yeah, I'll
Just
wear
in
it.
general.
Little cute
Yeah,
jean shorts and my kind of oversized MILF shirt. Yeah, it's great.
Mhm.
Nice. All right. Well, how can people find you if they want to work with you? What's the
Yeah.
best way?
Best way is through my website,
Okay.
CarolineGreenNutrition.com. There's
Yep.
a bunch of buttons or avenues to book a free discovery call, 15-minute
Nice.
call to talk about, whether it's good fit, their struggles, what they're looking for with nutrition counseling. And yeah, I see clients half in person, half virtual. Don't work full time just because I'm a mom.
Mhm.
See about anywhere from like 10 to 15 clients a week. So yeah, that's a way to reach out.
Nice.
My availability differs. Like right now is just like crazy busy, so I have a wait list, but it's always worth reaching out and asking,
Yeah.
are you accepting new clients or how long's the wait list?
Is there? Do you have a local spot that you meet people at?
Yeah.
Or-
I love my office. It's on Pickens Street near the law school, and it's called Columbia Counseling Collective. So it's
sweet.
like a shared co-working space with a bunch of therapists.
Sweet.
So it's like basically for counseling people. Nice and quiet. It's in a cute old White House.
Is that by Knowledge Perk?
Yes, across the street. Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know
Yeah.
how you could know that.
Dude, I know a lot.
He
You
just
need to
drives
respect how
around
much
in
I know.
random
I do
places
drive
like
a
you.
lot. I am all over Columbia.
Yeah, that's not anywhere near here, but yeah, you obviously
Sweet.
know Columbia.
That's great.
All
Thanks for
right.
being on the show.
Yeah,
That was
thanks
great.
so much for having me.
Appreciate
Appreciate it.
Here
We're here for the health of it.
for the health of it.